Claressa Shields just told the whole internet she might be pregnant, and I need you to sit with what that actually means for a second. Not the headline. Not the Shade Room repost. Not the little clip of her laughing on live with Papoose somewhere off camera. I mean the actual sentence. The most decorated woman to ever put on a pair of boxing gloves, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, an undisputed champion in multiple weight classes, the self-proclaimed and honestly statistically backed GWAT, stood in the middle of the biggest win week of her year, and the thing the entire culture walked away talking about was not the fight. It was a pregnancy joke. Or maybe not a joke. Depending on which post you saw, on which day, in which order. And that right there is the part nobody is slowing down enough to understand. Because everybody is framing this story as gossip. Oh, Claressa overshared again. Oh, Papoose went crazy with the emojis again. Oh, the timeline is eating this up again. But what if I told you the question was never, is she pregnant? The question is why the most dominant female fighter on the planet has learned that a maybe baby moves more numbers than a knockout. There are 3 timelines running at the same time in this story. There is the 6-week routine she described in her own words before this fight. There is the baby plan for 2026 that she and Papoose have both talked about publicly, down to the birthday surprise she said she wanted to give him. And there is a divorce from Remy that was confirmed publicly in 2025 and, depending on which report you read, may still not be finalized on paper. 3 separate stories, right? Wrong. They are the same story. And when we get to the part of this video where I break down how the modern celebrity rollout actually works, and I promise you, we are getting there, I have a whole section built for it, you are going to understand why none of this was an accident, why the slip was the strategy, and why the people laughing at Claressa Shields right now are reading the board completely upside down. Because what looks like chaos from the outside is the most controlled thing she has done all year. And the consequences of not understanding that go way past one couple. This is about how a woman who conquered 2 different sports worlds still has to feed the gossip machine to stay visible in an economy that does not pay her what a man with half her resume would get. Personal stakes. Cultural stakes. Systemic stakes. All of it is sitting inside one Instagram post that said 4 words, probably pregnant right now. So before the comment section committee starts typing, let me actually walk you through everything, the posts, the timelines, the reactions, the business behind all of it, because we have so much to cover today, and trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming up. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now, let's set the table properly, because if you just found this story from a repost page, you are missing about 2 years of context. Claressa Shields. Flint, Michigan. A woman who won her first Olympic gold medal as a teenager in 2012, came back and did it again in 2016, then turned professional and started collecting world titles across multiple weight divisions like they were participation trophies. Undisputed. Undefeated conversations. She has done things in boxing that no American man or woman has done in the modern era, and she has done most of it while fighting, and I mean literally fighting, for pay-per-view slots, for TV time, for purses that her male counterparts with half the belts would laugh at. She has been her own promoter, her own hype machine, her own PR department, for her entire career. Remember that, because it matters later. Then there is Papoose. Brooklyn. A lyricist's lyricist, the alphabetical slaughter legend, a man who spent nearly 2 decades in this culture being respected for 2 things, his pen and his loyalty. Because the Papoose story that everybody knows is the Remy story. When Remy was incarcerated, Papoose held it down for 6 years. He married her while she was inside in 2008. He was the stand-up guy, the hip-hop fairy tale husband, and when she came home they remarried in 2015, had a daughter in 2018, did the reality TV run, and became one of the culture's favorite couples. That is the brand. That was the brand. Fast forward. According to Essence, Claressa and Papoose met at a Shakur Stevenson fight in July of 2024. She invited him to one of her fights in Detroit. By the end of 2024, they were public. And in 2025, Papoose and Remy publicly confirmed their separation after 9 years of marriage, and it got ugly in public, with accusations flying on both sides, Remy opening up about the divorce in interviews, Pap denying he cheated. The whole timeline picking teams like it was a playoff series. Reports have described the divorce as still being worked through, with the 2 of them sharing a young daughter. So when Claressa says, as she reportedly did, that Papoose is not somebody's husband, that is her framing, but the paperwork question is one of those things blogs keep circling. That is the emotional backdrop. Now layer the boxing calendar on top. She had a fight, the K-Scott fight, and in the lead-up, she started telling interviewers, openly, on camera, that she and Papoose plan to have a baby in 2026. She reportedly said he was the one who asked her. She talked about wanting to surprise him with a baby for his birthday, which falls in early March. Then she won the fight, celebrated with Pap, and hit social media with the words that set this whole thing off. I'm probably pregnant right now. Musically, culturally, reputationally, the stakes here are not small. For her, it is legacy, body, career timing, and the entire women's boxing economy that rides on her name. For him, it is a public identity rebuilt in real time, from hip-hop's most loyal husband to the man in the middle of the messiest love triangle conversation in the culture. And for the rest of us watching, the real question sitting underneath all of it, the question this whole video is built to answer, is this: who is actually controlling this story? Her, or the machine feeding on her? Let's start with what we can all see. Layer 1. The surface evidence. The stuff you can verify yourself in 90 seconds if you cared to. Exhibit A is the post itself. After the fight, after the win, Claressa Shields took to social media and wrote, in her own words, that she was probably pregnant right now. That is not a blog making something up. That is not a source close to the situation. That is the champion herself, typing it, posting it, leaving it up while the internet did what the internet does. Screenshots everywhere. Reposts everywhere. The Shade Room picked it up, and their write-up of the whole situation, the post, the spicy details, the reactions, became one of their most engaged pieces of the week. Does everybody understand how unusual that is? Fighters win fights and post belts. They post highlights. They post the check. Claressa won her fight, and the first thing she wanted the world to know was what might be happening in her personal life. Whatever you think about that choice, it was a choice. Exhibit B is the interview content from before the fight, because this is where the story gets graphic in her own words, and I am just going to describe what was publicly reported. She explained, openly, that for the 6 weeks leading into a fight, she abstains. She talked about keeping her legs strong, keeping her focus, treating fight camp like a full lockdown, and then celebrating when the fight is over. The Shade Room reported all of this, and the internet's reaction was exactly what you would expect. Half the comments saying she shared way too much, half the comments saying they respect the discipline, and everybody asking why we know this information at all. Now listen. I am not going to sit here and shame a grown woman for talking about her own relationship on her own platforms. But can we stop and think about what it means that this was the most viral Claressa Shields content of the entire fight week? Not the weigh-in. Not the face-off. Not the actual highlights of the actual fight. The bedroom schedule of a champion trended harder than the championship performance. Exhibit C is the birthday comment. She said, on camera, that she wanted to surprise Papoose with a baby for his birthday, and the way she framed it, with the timing math out loud, basically inviting the entire internet to count months on a calendar. The Shadow League's write-up on that moment had a quote in the headline calling her delusional and pointing out he is almost 50. That is the level the coverage is at now. A 2-time Olympic gold medalist says she wants to start a family, and the headline is she delusional, he almost 50. Exhibit D, and this is the one that really tells you what lane this story has merged into, the AI pictures. There were AI-generated images floating around of Claressa pregnant, and instead of ignoring them, she engaged with them, reacted to them, posted around them. At that point, the story is no longer a story, it is a game, and both sides are playing. And then Exhibit E, the plot twist. After days of the internet running full speed with nursery names and due date math, Claressa went on live and shut it down. I'm not pregnant, y'all. Straight up. WBLS and others covered the walkback. So let's count where we are. She said she was probably pregnant. The internet exploded. She fed it a little more. Then she said she was not pregnant at all. And here is what I need you to hold on to as we go deeper. Every single one of those moves, including the denial, generated another full news cycle. The announcement was a story. The reaction was a story. The AI pictures were a story. The denial was a story. For headlines, minimum, off of one sentence and one live. And I think we need to set the record straight on what is actually happening here, because this does not look like a woman losing control of a narrative. It looks like something else entirely. And oh, do I have more for you? Because everything I just showed you is the stuff that was happening in public, in plain sight, on the main pages. What I have not shown you yet is how the people inside the culture responded, the rappers, the radio voices, the fans, and yes, the Remy Ma side of the internet, which has been watching all of this with a very particular energy. And I know some of the Papoose loyalists and the leave them alone crowd are already warming up in the comments, but you are really not going to like the part where we talk about the birthday surprise math and what the reaction to it reveals. Stay right here. Now, let's go inside the culture, because layer 2 is where this story stops being a gossip item and starts being a mirror. The first piece of cultural evidence you have to sit with is the reaction economy around the Shade Room post. That post did not just get shared, it got inhabited. Tens of thousands of comments, and the split was not about boxing at all. It was women debating whether a female athlete should ever have to say any of this out loud, and men cracking jokes about Papoose and his post-fight celebration energy. That split is the story. Claressa Shields has spent her whole career demanding to be treated like the male champions get treated, equal pay, equal respect, equal billing. And the one time the internet gave her male champion-level attention, it was not for a fight. It was for a fertility timeline. If that does not tell you something uncomfortable about the culture we are all participating in, I do not know what will. Second piece of cultural evidence, the radio and commentary circuit. This story did not stay on Instagram. It jumped to radio write-ups, WBLS covered her denial, Sam Silk ran the might be pregnant after Papoose let loose, angle, DJ Envy's page was amplifying the birthday baby surprise quote. Think about that pipeline for a second. A champion says something on her own page, and within 48 hours it has been processed through every major hip-hop media organ, repackaged with increasingly messy headlines, and fed back to the audience as comedy. Nobody in that chain called her publicist to ask if it was true. Nobody in that chain needed to. The content is the confirmation. The third piece of evidence is the fan community fracture, and this one is genuinely interesting. If you spend time in the comment sections and the fan groups, and I do, so you do not have to, there are two completely different Claressa conversations happening at the same time. In one conversation, she is a legend enjoying her life, laughing at AI pregnancy pictures, planning a family, living unbothered, and people love it. In the other conversation, she is embarrassing herself, oversharing, chasing a man nearly 50 who, as far as public reporting goes, was still untangling a marriage to Remy Ma, and people are begging her to log off. Same woman. Same posts. Two Americas. And both sides are absolutely certain they are the ones seeing her clearly. That fracture is not an accident either, and we are going to get to why in the analysis section, because it is the whole ballgame. The fourth piece of cultural evidence, and this is the one that changes the temperature of the whole story, is the Remy Ma dimension. Because let us not pretend we do not know there is an entire side of this culture watching this relationship specifically because of who Papoose used to be married to. Remy has spoken publicly about the divorce. The accusations on both sides were public. Pap denied cheating. And into that environment, Claressa walks in and starts talking publicly on camera about 6-week routines, birthday baby surprises, and being probably pregnant. Now, I want to be fair and give you the counter-argument because I am not here to just pile on. The generous reading is real. Two grown people, in love, unbothered, sharing their joy. Claressa has said she wishes the relationship had stayed private, which suggests she is not in love with the circus. And honestly, if any of us had cameras pointed at our group chats, we would all look messy too. I get it. Here is where that reading falls apart for me. You cannot say you wish it was private and then announce the conception window of your future child on a live stream. Those two things cannot both be true. One of them is the brand, and the other one is the exit interview. And every piece of behavior, the emoji storms from Papoose after the fight, the engagement with the AI pictures, the on-camera calendar math, points the same direction. The privacy talk is the disclaimer. The posting is the product. And speaking of which, this is exactly why we have to leave the gossip layer right now, because what I am about to show you is not about a relationship at all. Because here is where I need you to lean in and switch gears with me. Forget the emojis. Forget the comment sections. Forget the birthday surprise for the next few minutes. We are going to talk about systems now, because the only way this story makes sense is if you understand the machinery Claressa Shields has been living inside her entire career, and there are 3 separate layers to it that all lead to the same place. The first layer is the attention economy math of being a female fighter. Let me paint you a picture with real structural detail. In boxing, your purse is tied to your drawing power. Your drawing power is tied to your visibility. Your visibility, if you're a woman in this sport, is tied to things that have almost nothing to do with boxing. Claressa Shields has been saying this out loud for years. She has talked about the pay gap in women's boxing in interviews. She has talked about doing her own promotion, her own marketing, fighting for television slots that male champions get handed. So put yourself in her position, structurally, not emotionally. You are the most accomplished fighter in your sport. And the data you can see with your own eyes tells you that a post about your relationship outperforms a post about your title defense by an order of magnitude. The Shade Room does not run her punch stats. The Shade Room runs her bedroom schedule. What do you think a person who has been her own marketing department for a decade does with that information? She is not naive. She is numerate. Every overshare is inventory. Every pregnancy tease is a ratings period. And the denial at the end is not a correction, it is a renewal, because the denial itself is another headline, another cycle, another week where her name is in the algorithm doing work that boxing media never did for her. That is layer 1. The second layer is what I call the relatability pivot, and this one is about the specific career moment she is in. Claressa has been the GWOT for a long time, and here is the quiet problem with being the GWOT: dominance is boring to casuals. Unbeaten champions in every sport eventually hit the same wall. The audience stops asking, will she win, and starts not caring at all. Floyd figured this out decades ago and became a villain. Ronda crossed into entertainment. What does a fighter do when the boxing story is fully told, but the checks still need signing? You give them a second story. A human story. A story a person who has never watched a full round can still have an opinion about. Love, marriage, drama, adjacency, babies, fertility timelines, that is the most universal content vertical on the entire internet. Whether or not there is a slide deck somewhere with this strategy typed out, functionally, that is what is happening. The boxing audience is maxed out. The lifestyle audience is infinite. She is porting her fame from a small room to a big one, and the toll you pay at that border is your privacy. Third layer, and this is the deepest one. The machine around her profits from the mess, in a way she never fully will. Look at the whole supply chain. The Shade Room gets the traffic. The blogs get the headlines, she delusional, he almost 50, gets clicks no fight recap ever would. YouTube commentators get a week of content. The AI picture accounts get engagement. Everybody in that chain eats except the person whose actual life is the raw material. And here is the part that should genuinely bother you. This same machine that strips her down to gossip is the machine she cannot afford to leave, because it is the only distribution channel that has ever consistently shown up for her. Boxing media didn't. Promoters didn't. The timeline does. So she feeds it. And the culture calls her messy for serving the exact meal the culture ordered. Does everybody understand how backwards that actually is? One more systemic angle, because it connects everything, the Papoose rebrand engine. A rapper whose primary cultural identity for 20 years was Remy Ma's loyal husband does not have an obvious second act. But a man attached to the most famous female fighter alive, in a relationship the internet cannot stop litigating? That is a relevance machine. Every post she makes reintroduces him to a new audience. Every controversy refreshes both of their names in the same headline. I am not saying the relationship is fake. I have no reason to say that, and the evidence says they are genuinely together. What I am saying is that in the attention economy, love and leverage are not opposites. They're a joint venture. And one more thing before we get to the payoff, because I know somebody is typing right now that I am overthinking a couple being happy. Listen, I just have to say this. Overthinking is what they pay me for, and more importantly, overthinking is what this culture never does until it is too late. We watched an entire generation of athletes get strip-mined by this exact pipeline. The relationship becomes the product becomes the identity, and the identity becomes the cage. We have watched it happen in boxing, in basketball, in music, over and over, and every single time the audience swears this one is different. This one is just love. This one is just jokes. Maybe it is. I genuinely hope it is. But the structure does not care about your intentions. The structure converts sincerity into inventory at the exact same rate it converts performance into inventory. That is what engineered means. Not fake, harvested. There is a difference, and it is the most important difference in this entire video, so do not let anybody tell you I said this relationship is not real. I said the realness is the resource. Now hold all three of those layers in your head, the purse math, the relatability pivot, the machine that eats her, because they all meet at one point. And that point is the truth bomb I promised you at the top of this video. So here it is. The payoff. The thing every piece of evidence in this video has been building toward, and I am going to say it slowly, because I need it to land the right way. The pregnancy tease was never the story. The story is that Claressa Shields figured out, or her instincts figured out, because I think this is more instinct than conspiracy, that in 2026, a champion's body is content, a champion's relationship is programming, and a champion's womb, frankly, is the single most valuable piece of intellectual property in her entire commercial life right now. Sit with how heavy that is. This is a woman who won Olympic gold before she could legally drink in this country. A woman who has unified divisions. A woman who carried women's boxing on her back through years when nobody with power wanted to fund it. And the most powerful media asset she owns today is not her jab, not her resume, not her belts. It is the question mark she placed over her own body, in her own words, on her own page, probably pregnant right now, because she knows, with the certainty of someone who has watched the numbers her whole career, that this question will outperform anything she could ever do in a ring. And before anybody mishears me, I am not saying she is lying about wanting a baby. She has said, clearly and repeatedly, reportedly at Papoose's own request, that she wants a child in 2026. I believe her. That is not the reveal. The reveal is the sequencing. Think about the order of operations one more time, now with everything we have covered. She announces the baby plan months out, that seeds the storyline. She details the 6-week routine, that builds anticipation toward the fight like a countdown. She wins the fight and immediately posts the maybe. That is the climax. She rides the explosion, plays with the AI pictures, lets the blogs eat. That is the after show. Then she goes live and says she is not pregnant. That is the season finale cliffhanger that guarantees the next season, because now the audience knows there is a real baby timeline and they will be watching her midsection for the next 12 months. That is not oversharing. That is programming. That is a rollout structure more disciplined than most album campaigns, run by a woman who, remember, has been her own promoter, her own publicist, and her own marketing department for a decade, because the industry would not do it for her. Now here is where I have to be honest about the edges of this, because I do not hide the ball on this channel. Some of this is interpretation. The sequencing is documented fact, the posts, the interviews, the live, all public, all time-stamped. The intent behind the sequencing is my analysis, and I am telling you plainly that it is analysis. But I have been saying on this channel for a long time that the celebrities who look the most chaotic are usually the ones running the tightest operation, and I am asking you to apply that lens here and tell me what you see. Because what I see is a woman who took the most invasive gossip machine in modern media, aimed it at herself, on her own terms, and turned the most private thing a person has into the most public leverage she has ever held. Is that empowering, or is it the most devastating commentary on what female athletes have to do to stay visible that you have ever heard? Honestly, and this, to me, is the most important thing, it is both. It is genius, and it is a tragedy wearing the same outfit. She beat the machine by feeding it herself. And the price of that victory is that the whole world now feels entitled to her body, her womb, her relationship, her timeline, and she can never fully close that door again, because the door is the product now. And yet, here is the part the comment section committee will never give her credit for, and it is the part that matters most. Through all of it, the posts, the jokes, the AI pictures, the walkbacks, the headlines calling her delusional, the actual underlying facts of Claressa Shields have not moved 1 inch. She still won the fight. She is still undefeated in the conversations that matter. She is still the most decorated fighter of her era, male or female, pound for pound, and no amount of shade room comments changes a single line of that record. She went into camp with discipline that would embarrass most professional athletes. 6 weeks of lockdown, in her own words, treating her body like the business asset it is. She executed, she won, and then, and only then, she celebrated. That is the order of operations of a professional. The discipline came first. The joy came after. And then she converted the joy into the loudest week of earned media any female boxer has had all year, without spending $1 on promotion. While the blogs are mocking her calendar math, she is sitting at home with the win, the man, the headlines, and a baby plan she controls the announcement of from start to finish. Meanwhile, what is on the other side of the story? A rap legend, a man I genuinely respect, whose whole public identity is now riding shotgun in somebody else's content strategy, doing emoji reactions while his divorce paperwork is still a blog topic. One person in this story spent 6 weeks in lockdown and then won a professional fight. The other one went crazy with the emojis. I know which one of those two is actually winning. And I will tell you something else. The fact that the culture's instinct is to clown her for it is exactly the disease this whole video has been diagnosing. She played the only game that was ever offered to her, and she played it better than the people who build it. The right person is still winning. She never stopped. And do not think for 1 second that this story is over, because it is absolutely only the start. 2 things are coming, and you heard them here first. Number 1, that baby timeline is real, and it is dated. She said 2026 out loud, on camera, more than once. Which means sometime in the next several months there is going to be either a real announcement, a real fight announcement that conflicts with it, or a very public pivot, and any one of those 3 is a bigger headline than this one. Number 2, the Remy Ma chapter of this story is not closed. Divorce filings, interviews, social media, that situation has a pulse, and every time it flares up, it lands directly on top of this relationship, and we will be here to break it down when it does. So if you are not subscribed, you are going to be the person finding out 3 days late from a screenshot with no context. Do not be that person. Hit the button, hit the bell, and stand with me, because somebody has to keep telling these stories the whole way down to the foundation, and clearly it is going to be us. And before you go, next video, we are going even deeper into the machinery. There is a reason certain celebrity couples go viral on a schedule and others never trend at all, and there is a name that keeps showing up behind the biggest relationship rollouts of the last 2 years that nobody has connected yet. When you see who it is, every random, viral couple moment you have ever watched is going to look completely different. That video is next. You do not want to miss it. I will see you there.